So what on earth is this behind you, Lewis, I hear you saying? So this is a 24-hour protest by the Falun Gong to protest against the CCP. Now, I'm not here to talk about that in today's video, but I think it's very interesting that they chose to do this protest in this very spot, because if you look behind me here, right behind me is the Chinese embassy in London. So yeah, if you're going to protest against the CCP, then this really is the spot. But I'm not going to be talking about that today. Today, I'm going to talk about what happened several days ago outside the Chinese consulate in Manchester. Okay, so several days ago, outside the Chinese consulate in Manchester, there was a protest organized by people from Hong Kong. It was a peaceful protest. It's actually quite a common thing to do this in the UK. If you are against the government, you don't like a government, or you don't like something that a government are doing, you can go outside their embassy or outside their consulate and you can set up a protest. It's perfectly legal. There's nothing wrong in doing that. As long as you're peaceful and you're not there to cause trouble or to be violent, then it's perfectly fine. So these Hong Kongers were outside the Chinese consulate in Manchester. They set up some banners, you know, the typical stuff, down with the CCP. They made a big cartoon of Xi Jinping, quite funny. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was pretty hilarious. And they just did their peaceful little protest, right? I mean, I've seen so many protests outside this Chinese embassy here in London. I've seen Uyghurs protesting, I've seen Chinese dissidents protesting, people from Hong Kong because of that terrible national security law, and of course right behind me here is the Falun Gong doing their 24-hour protest. So it's perfectly fine to do that. Well, the Consular General in Manchester, some guy called Xiyuan, he didn't think so. So he got involved with this protest, and when I say got involved with the protest, I don't mean that he was out there with his big banner saying down with the CCP, okay? He went up to the protesters and he harassed them, he ripped up some of their banners, and he got some of his CCP thugs from outside the embassy, sorry, not embassy, consulate. He got his CCP thugs from outside the consulate to actually drag some of the protesters into the consulate, which is actually considered Chinese territory. And I'm starting to think, just there behind me, that's Chinese territory too. Imagine they got a bunch of thugs and decided just to drag me in there. What would they do to me? Do they have any of these tiger chairs set up? You know, those metal chairs that are built to interrogate people. You've seen them, right? I'll put a little image of one of them in here. Scary stuff. I wonder how many tiger chairs they have in there. Oh man, I'm starting to worry now. Are they going to get some of their thugs to come and drag me in? I highly doubt it, because this is the UK, right? That should not have happened in Manchester. This is really unprecedented, never happened before. But what happened was, okay, so they dragged some of the protesters in, and they started getting physical, a lot of injuries. You should watch the video. I'll put a little bit of a clip in here to show you what happened, okay? It really is ridiculous. One of the protesters got injuries around his face. I believe even getting kicked in the head was happening. Pretty bad stuff, right? Pretty bad stuff. But this Consular General for the Manchester consulate, why on earth did he get involved? It's really funny because he was interviewed on Sky News, right? And you know what he said? He said that it was his duty to do that, and that they were making fun of his glorious leader, Xi Jinping.
I don't attack anybody. I'm the peacefully.
That's not true though, is it, Consul General? You pulled the man's hair.
Yeah, the man is because he's abused my country, my leader. I think it's my duty.
I mean, Xi Jinping is a pretty insecure leader. In fact, he's probably the most insecure leader the world has today. Isn't this the guy that banned Winnie the Pooh, characters of him, comparing him to Winnie the Pooh? And that is a common misconception. Winnie the Pooh is not banned in China, but it is banned to compare him to Winnie the Pooh, and also make puns about it as well in the newspapers. It's really quite ridiculous, right? So this Consular General, Zheng Xi Jinping, whatever the hell his name is, he was really offended that people were making fun of his glorious leader with this funny cartoon. And I just want to say that that is just ridiculous, okay? You know, Here in the UK, there are so many satirical cartoons in the newspapers of political leaders. You name that political leader, there's probably been a funny, silly cartoon of them, because it's just a good way to express your opinion about somebody and do it in a comical way. Like myself with the Shield Busters, you know, I always do it in a funny way, because sometimes humor is the best way to deal with all of these terrible things that are happening in the world, right? But this Xiyuan, he really did not like this cartoon of his glorious leader, and he said that it was his duty to get rid of this cartoon. I'm sorry, mate, but you're not in China, you're in the UK, and we're allowed to do things like that. In fact, even in China, they do things like that. If you look in the Global Times, the mouthpiece, the state mouthpiece for the CCP, you can see cartoons of so many political leaders. I'll put a few in this video so you can see them. And they're making fun of all of these political leaders, talking about, for example, the Nord Stream, blaming it on America. They've made several of Boris Johnson, and I think they're quite funny because I think Boris Johnson is an idiot too, okay? And I'm allowed to say that because here in the UK we have freedom of speech. So why is he getting offended by a cartoon of his leader, but in the Global Times, you know the one person that you'll never see a cartoon about? That's right, Xi Jinping, because it's not allowed. They're not allowed to make fun of Xi Jinping, but they're allowed to make fun of every other political leader throughout the entire world. It really is ridiculous, right? So I really think that it's time that we all start thinking about why somebody like Zheng Xiyuan should be allowed to get away with trampling on somebody's freedom of speech here in a free country like the UK. And on that note, I'm going to exercise my freedom of speech right now. So f you, Xi Jinping. And there's me exercising my freedom of speech.
Hi.
Hi, freedom of speech, right?